Well, welcome both to 152, the podcast. I'm your host, Jayne Williams, and I'm also the CEO of 152 Harley Street, which is also the home of Neo Health and the London Scar Clinic. In each episode, the 152 podcast, I'll be speaking to our world-renowned specialists, who I have two with us this evening, and we'll be talking about the latest treatments, the latest technology, and opening the doors so we can share with you what goes on inside 152 Harley Street. So good evening.
Good evening,
Good
Jane.
evening to Rae. Good evening to Jorge.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you, and thank you so much for coming. I know you've just finished surgery, and Rae's got a patient to go off and see in about 20 minutes. So we're fitting in this podcast, which we really appreciate, and we'd love to do one of these every month to show everyone what we do here and the expertise that we have here. Tonight is about the London Scar Clinic and the speciality that we have at the clinic. But first of all, I'd just like to introduce Rae, specifically, who's an award-winning specialist, won an award, the Life-Changing Procedure Award, featured on ITV's This Morning, in collaboration with the Katie Piper Foundation. Our audience would love to hear more about your journey to becoming a medical tattooist and how this has become a passion and incredibly rewarding career by the sound of it.
It is. It took a long time really to get where I am, because when I was at school there wasn't really, I didn't know anything about medical tattooing, so I was always very art-based but also liked science. Ended up going to do a graphic design degree, and most of my projects that I did were on the body, so I did lots of drawing, painting on the body, and all of my projects were on people's bodies. When I came to actually working as a graphic designer, obviously you're then stuck in front of a computer, and that just wasn't my how I wanted to portray my work. So I worked for a couple of years, ended up doing a TV show, actually, working as on production for a TV show, but gave it up because my heart wasn't in it. Ended up going and becoming a makeup artist, training with the Glauca Rossi School of Makeup, doing fashion and photographic makeup.
Wow.
And that led me into doing body painting for pop videos, billboard ads, catwalk shows, that sort of thing. And
anyone we'd know?
So I did Spice Girls, worked on with the Spice Girls, the Cause, Phil
fantastic.
Collins, did lots of shoots for Coca-Cola and Swatch and all sorts of things. And it was brilliant. And I was early 20s, living in London, absolutely loved it. But it was great for a while, did lots of body painting shoots, but it got to the point where it still wasn't really enough. It wasn't really helping people. So I stopped and went travelling to New Mexico, studied, lived out there for a year, studied a different kind of body therapy called core synchronism, which taught me again more about the understanding of the workings of the body. So everything I've ever done has been about how to work with the body, with a patient, but using an artistic, using my artistic expression, I suppose, with that, but always with the want of actually helping somebody. So to cut a long story short, eventually I moved to Wales, worked as a makeup artist, and it was then really that I was just doing wedding makeup. And I was covering somebody's scars for their wedding, and somebody said to me, "Why don't you do camouflage cream?" And I'd never heard of it at all, because I was just using normal concealer to cover burns, scars, tattoos, that sort of thing. And it was when I looked into camouflage cream that I found medical tattooing, and I knew as soon as I saw it that that's what I wanted to do, because you can draw on people, but you can also help people. Mm-hmm. So luckily I was in Wales, and there was the whole of Wales, all the burns and plastics units had amalgamated at Morriston Hospital. Mm-hmm. And I phoned them up. They ran a camouflage clinic. They were happy for me to come and view them and observe the camouflage practitioner, which I did for a year, ended up taking over her clinic. And they had a medical tattooist there who was a nurse, who was the lead nurse in the burns and plastics unit. And she was also doing the medical tattooing for patients post-mastectomy and breast reconstruction. So I went and observed her as well, and eventually ended up running their clinic there. And that's when I sort of took on the extra training, which was to do semi-permanent makeup, but also scar tattooing, cleft lip tattooing, skin grafts, that sort of thing. and then started my own private practice.
Wow. And you mentioned that the medical tattooist was working with patients who'd had mastectomies. So what would they be doing in that instance? Why would they get involved? Yeah.
So when you've had a mastectomy, quite often the nipple and the areola has been removed, so there's nothing there. So the reconstructions are great, but you've got a flat, clear breast with nothing on it at all. So the tattooing would be building up the nipple and the areola. Sometimes they might have a nipple reconstruction, but you're essentially building up, not building it up, but you're drawing on
that authenticity back.
Or reconstructing the nipple and the areola. So they've got something visual there that looks, when they look in a mirror or when they're getting changed at the gym or the swimming pool, nobody immediately glances at them. So
amazing.
Yeah, so
life-changing.
So quite often it can be for people, because it's once all the surgeons and the doctors and the laser specialists has finished and they've done their job of saving lives or building up the medical side of it. It's then the visual impact that can have on somebody
and the psychological impact.
And the psychological impact of how whether they then will go back out to their daily life or whether they're constantly being asked, why have you got this, what happened to you? And it's those daily questions that seem to really impact a lot of patients that I see. And so I can't remove anything physically at all, but I can visibly reduce the impact of a visible difference. Sometimes to the point where it looks like there was nothing there in the first place when it comes to a scar or a skin graft, or sometimes you're adding something on when it comes to a breast or eyebrow or definition from a cleft lip, and you're doing the Cupid's bow.
Fantastic. And Jorge, Rae mentioned there burns, and we have Jorge with us this evening, who is a leading plastic surgeon specialising in burns. And I just listening to what Rae was saying about, having to help patients with burns. So with regards to your expertise, there's a lot there, isn't there, when somebody gets burnt? It's not just the physical trauma, but it's living with what happens next, really. And could you share with us some of the sort of the examples of what you've dealt with and how we support the patients after the burns?
I think that it's fair to say that each patient is an individual, each case is an experience, and each operation, a scar is a challenge. I think that it's fair to say that between all of the forms of trauma that we can recognize, traffic accidents or any other type of bad experiences, I think burns is visually and emotionally extremely challenging. And it's challenging for the patient, it's challenging for the family of the patient, it's challenging for the society, but there's absolutely no doubt that it's a challenge for the health professionals that have to do with it. If we consider the scars, the natural consequence of tissue repair, it's fair to say that a good scar is a scar basically that has got the best possibilities to succeed. A fit and healthy individual in good care tissues with no comorbidities. We don't have that type of luxury in burns. We have got tissues that have been greatly damaged, sometimes basically as beyond repair, that need to be reconstructed, sometimes with techniques that just seal the defect and produce great amount of contractures. And the scars that leave not only physical but also emotional damage for the patients forever. What we deal when we deal with the scars, we deal from the point of view of multidisciplinarity. I think that is fair to say that modern burn care is multimodal. That means basically that one size does not fit all. Is multidisciplinary. That means basically that I am one of the parts of the management, but I've got the pleasure to have Rae here. We work together. We share cases, and we improve basically the quality of life of patients with the scars thanks to each other's expertise. And the expertise is actually as complementary, with no expertise being more important or less important than other. Sometimes they need to follow a degree of a sequence. First of all, basically achieving appropriate wound healing in the best conditions of the patient. But also making sure that you combine the best techniques with a bit of a cosmetic repair to the patient, and also basically with a fair amount of emotional input. That means that in order to do burns, or be a plastic surgeon with an interest in burns, you need to be, as one of my mentors used to say, able, affable, and available. You need to know basically what you're doing, but you need to like basically it's that type of patients that are challenging and be there for them at the time of need. And there's no doubt basically is that a patient with burn scars are patients for life.
For life,
have got challenges basically all of the time. The challenges, as I said, they're not only physical, they can be emotional. And I think it's fair to say that you learn a lot from your patients. It's a very humbling experience.
And I joined the multidisciplinary team for the London Scar Clinic only the other evening, and you were both part of that team, as you mentioned. And I was it was really inspiring to listen to you all talking about, there were 3 patients that evening that you were discussing, all with very different life-changing injuries. And they were scars, but as you say, that person lives with those scars forever, and it's the best outcomes you try and achieve. It's not just the physical, it's the mental well-being. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve at the London Scar Clinic. And the type of patients that get in touch with us, they need all of your services for a really long time, psychologically, from, psychiatrists, therapists, to yourself, Rae, to Jorge, and other plastic surgeons, and other disciplines.
That's what I think so nice about the London Scar Clinic and 152 is that people are working together. So you're not just coming to work and seeing your patient. You are able to discuss patients. You are able to refer. You know that if the patient's not right for you, you'll know somebody who can help them. And that, for me, is the best thing about working here. And the quality of the consultants that are here.
The expertise.
It's just the expertise that's here, and the skill level. But also the kindness, hearing Jorge speak about, being affable and their lifetime patients. It's so nice to hear that, because that's one of the things that I always feel is the most important thing is you have to really care about the patient.
For sure.
You have to want the best for them. It's not just about your skill or what you do. It's about what's right for them. And I feel that here at the London Scar Clinic, that everybody has got that person's best interest at heart.
Absolutely. And you see it every day. I mean, I was only in the office here the other day, and yourself, Jorge, and a couple of the other surgeons had come up, and we'd had a really sad young man who had self-harmed and needed the Scar Clinic to help reduce some of that tissue damage. And he actually needed something quite special, and there was a conversation, and I was listening to all the different experts and coming up with a plan, and the care and the genuine need to want to help this patient. And like you say, they're forever, these patients.
Absolutely. I think when we are dealing with the scars, the key word is improvement, and that improvement could be variable, but needs to impact in the quality of life of the patient.
The best outcome possible.
Absolutely. That's the reason why multidisciplinarity and multimodality is so important in scar management, and I think that we have got a wealth of experience in here, taking into consideration that not only we have got a great degree of expertise with excellent colleagues, but we have got the latest techniques, the latest equipment, and that is basically at the disposal of the patient in a very tailored fashion. What that means is that never one size fits all in a scar management. The patient is an individual. And we know by scar psychology that the concern of the patient about the scar has got nothing to do with the size of the scar or where that scar is. It impacts in a very individual and sometimes very traumatic fashion in the psyche of the patient and in their activities of daily living and how they actually portray themselves in front of society. That's the reason why I feel we have got something special here. We are able to share our experience, but we're able to take advantage of the expertise of others and being able to transfer that knowledge for the benefit of the patient, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, and it is. And I think also probably good for our audience to understand that a lot of the experts that work together in the London Scar Clinic, you work across London in the NHS, you've been in the NHS today doing your NHS work, and you've come into the Scar Clinic in the evening to see your patients, but you may not have necessarily, you might know one another as health professionals, but this is a place where all that expertise merges and comes together for the greater good of the patient. And it's amazing. And one of the things, I think you said it to me, Rae, the other day, about how and actually one of our other surgeons said it, how we're always learning, because you're all bringing different things to the table every time there's a different patient.
That's what's so exciting about it, is you, especially in medical industry, you are constantly learning, because it's constantly changing. Everybody wants to do a better treatment and to give better results, so it means that they're thinking all the time, how can I improve? How can we improve? That's what that for me is what keeps me going in this industry.
And like Jorge said, we've got amazing equipment here, but that's always the technology. You know, the companies that make it with the lasers, particularly, they're always looking at new ways and finding a different reason why the laser's having a different impact on a different part of the body. And so all of those things in the mix is a great offering for a patient to help them.
And also the fact that we're doing a vodcast is another way of improving our services. So patients now, because it would have been different 10 years ago, but patients now, they want to know how they can find people. They want to see it on social media. They want to see what it looks like behind the scenes and how people converse with each other. And that's another improvement that 152 and the London Scar Clinic are doing for their patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And they want to know that you did the makeup for the Spice Girls, and they want to know that Jorge comes in on a bicycle.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
With your Lycra on.
London knows about how even in the rain, can rain or shine.
Well done, you.
Certainly, I would like basically to add something to what you said earlier. We have got undoubtedly some of the best equipment to deal with the scars, but I think that it's important to stress that all of that equipment, all of those techniques are actually supplied in a very evidence-based fashion. So the patient treatment is actually tailored by what actually is the best thing that can happen, which is a close interaction, a thorough analysis basically of the patient's needs and requirements to improve. And only then an array of options in an ascending order of complexity is offered to the patients that can have the time to choose without any type of just pressure or tension about what the best is.
And I think that's a really important point, because since I've been here, I have also seen some of your colleagues in a very gentle but wonderful way have to say to a patient, actually, there's no point you going through this procedure. It's not going to have a good outcome. But the fact that the team have made that decision and the patient has got time to talk about it, and maybe there's a sort of alternative therapy to make them feel better that we can support them with, but actually doing a treatment for treatment's sake is not what we do here. And if we're not going to get a good outcome and the evidence isn't there to show that we can, then we manage that.
People need to know that, don't they?
They want to know the truth, don't they?
They need to know that from a clinic, that somebody will say no to them.
Yeah.
Scar management is not is not only the plastic surgery or scars or cutting away the scars or excise the scars.
It's not straightforward at all.
It's nothing like that. Is effectively being able to choose the appropriate way to deal with that scar and to tailor the treatment to the patient. I feel that is more or less like the wealth of the multidisciplinary meeting where we actually sometimes get together and share experiences. And I feel that our patients actually has benefit. We have got fantastic feedback about that. And we can show that our treatments are actually as filtered through the expertise of others.
Yeah, amazing. So, fantastic. I could talk to you guys all night. I usually do. But some personal highlights. It would be great to hear from each of you if there's a personal highlight where you've really seen a difference in your work, and why that was such a personal highlight. Putting you on the spot, I'm afraid, so I don't know who wants to go first.
I'm quite happy to go first, purely because I did actually have a phone call this morning when I was doing my reviews with a patient, and she had self-harm scars, and we've done 3 treatments. Self-harm scars are, in my experience, one of the hardest to cover with medical tattooing. Because they're very obvious as to what they are. They cause a lot of mental anguish, and people are concerned about other people seeing them and knowing what they are. And they've been really difficult to cover. And it's completely different to covering another type of scarring. And it's taken me years to work out the best way to get the best result. And today I had a conversation with a patient, a review. So it was 4 weeks after we did her 3rd treatment. And she said, I'm so happy with it. She said, in certain lights, it looks like they're not even there. She said, I would never thought I would get to that point. And she said, and obviously in some lights you can still see them a little bit, but to get to that point where that type of scarring, which is so difficult to cover, to the point where actually sometimes she doesn't even see them on her, that for me was a real highlight, because it's taken a long time to get to that type of technique where you can actually work with self-harm scars in that way. So I was, for me, that was a highlight.
And how long has that treatment taken?
So she's had 3 treatments. We did, and that would, the length of the treatment will depend on how many scars they've got. Generally, it will be about an hour. So we did 3-hour treatments with anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks in between treatments. So that healing time's just as important for the pigment to settle, for the skin to settle. For us to review what it looks like and see what we need to do. So that was 3 treatments.
Incredible.
So
and we're
really
hoping,
pleased.
aren't we, Rae, that we might have some patients in future vodcasts that are going to come and talk to us.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few patients who are really happy to share their experience, because they know that it helps other people. And it helps other people who might be too embarrassed to talk about their issue, who don't know where to go about their issue, or don't even know things like medical tattooing exists. So that's quite a nice way of getting that information out there as well.
That's the reason why discussion is so important.
And that personal journey for somebody as well, because I can talk from a professional level, but obviously someone who's been through that journey, explaining it to people would be great as well.
And also, so they know they're not on their own, because when these things happen, whether it's self-harming, whether it's an injury, trauma, you always think
you keep it quiet.
Yours, you do,
and you keep it quiet because you want it covered up.
Of course,
so you don't tend to. A lot of people don't tend to speak about it, but there are people that will. So there will be people that will happily come on a vodcast.
Fantastic. And Jorge, a personal highlight for you?
I think basically scar management that reintegrates people to society. I think there's a lot of functional individuals out there that out of choice decide to have management of a scar at a stage just because they have got the possibility to do so. But there is a fair amount of individuals out there that are actually hidden in the, I would say in the corners of society, being unable to actually become functional. I would actually highlight two. One is children that have got burns.
Yes.
Or victims, basically, of abuse or acid attacks. I've treated basically a few of those. It's rewarding, and the best thing basically is that we can say is that we can improve the quality of life by improving their scars. I think that's the biggest homage, in making these individuals effectively go functional and become members of society that are able effectively to contribute again.
Incredible. Oh, thank you so much, both of you. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully you'll join us again on our vodcasts. And look forward to seeing you around the clinic. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jorge.